This week on the show, top 5 on a boat. Let's find out what the heck that means. My number 5, there's nothing that says you can't find love on a boat. So my number 5 is The Love Boat, Matthew. This is a show that was kind of a staple on a Saturday night back in the 1980s. You had your cast of regular goofballs on the ship, your Captain Steubings and your Docs and your guy with the fingers at the bar giving you the Shooter McGavins. And every week, a rotating guest cast of celebrities would come on, not as themselves, but as different characters that they would play. And this comedy/love show would have people fall in love on the boat as they went to Puerto Vallarta. That was their destination aboard the Princess. I forget what the full name of the ship was. It was a real boat.
Princess.
It was a real boat, that's for sure. Occasionally, they would do special trips to like Hawaii or Japan, or something bad would happen and everyone would get malaria on the boat. But at the end, everybody would get off that boat happier than when they got on the ABC staple, The Love Boat. That's my number 5 on a boat, Matthew. What do you have for your number 5?
My kid doesn't know The Love Boat, but they know the theme song and will continue to sing The Love Barge.
Yeah.
As for my number 5, it's actually one that kind of ties into my love of comics, and I think to some degree your love of Gotham City, and that is the Batcave on a boat. My number 5 is Batwoman's floating headquarters, the Sequoia, which initially was the Kane family yacht. Of course, the Kanes are cousins of the Waynes. They still have millions and millions of dollars, of course. And at one point, Batwoman actually used her family yacht, and her control person was Julia Pennyworth, the daughter of Alfred Pennyworth. And so they would be like, "Oh yes, here we are on my yatchet. I am a rich woman with no day job." And then at night she would whoosh out as Batwoman and punch evil in the face. But turns out that at the time she was also working for a group called the Colony, which was this strange underground, bizarre organization, kind of like the Court of Owls. Only I feel like they were earlier, and so nobody remembers them. And secretly, her boat would turn into a flying kind of airship. But still was a boat. It was floating in the harbor, and thus, my number 5, Batcave on a boat.
Very cool. So my number 4, I saw this originally as a movie before I even realized it was a book. But it was about this poor fisherman who has not caught any fish, and he is desperate to bring money in. And so early one morning, Santiago takes his little boat out into the Gulf, and he catches a giant marlin. And it is so hard. He fights. This marlin pulls him so far out to sea, and he's got to reel it in. In the movie, his hands are all bloodied and welted, and he's dragging this thing, and he fights it. It's a struggle. It's a metaphor, Matthew, about a man against nature. But eventually, he is able to bring that marlin and tie it to the side of his boat. He can't even bring it into the boat because it's so big. But then, on the way back to his home, the sharks smell blood in the water. And by the time poor Santiago gets back home, there's hardly anything left of the poor marlin and this old man and the sea. Ernest Hemingway's classic Old Man and the Sea, released in, I want to say 1952. It was written fairly quickly between December of 1950 and February of 1951. But a lot of controversy on this book. It's just a novella, but it was supposed to be an excerpt in a magazine first, with the book coming out like a week or two later. But the magazine publisher, Life, decided to print the entire thing in the magazine, and then Scribner's released the first edition like a week later. And so there was some controversy on the release. Also, apparently, because of the way it was released, this book was incredibly bootlegged. But it still sold tens of thousands of copies of the book and 5.3 million copies of the magazine. And I'm sure Hemingway got a lot of money from those magazine sales There you go. My number 4, The Old Man and the Sea.
I always thought it was the old man in the sea, but apparently,
Nope, he doesn't
it's
ever
not.
go into the water. He stays on the boat, which is why it fits
See,
in
that's
perfectly with my top 5 on a boat theme. So let's see how you fare, Matthew, with your number 4 on a boat.
my number 4 has actually happened several times in the 60-year history of Doctor Who, but my number 4 is actually number 5, or the fifth Doctor. My number 4 is Doctor Who on a boat. It's actually a story called Enlightenment. And Enlightenment, I believe, is from, I'm going to say season 19 or 20. I can't remember. But it's during the time when, foolishly, somebody had the really great idea to give the Doctor a companion who was secretly out to kill him. And it quickly became clear that either, if the Doctor's companion was out to kill him, either he had to be an idiot, or we had to have the Doctor be completely oblivious to the fact that Vizsla Turlough trying to kill him. So throughout this particular serial, which I believe was actually 4 episodes, you have this ongoing thing where Turlough is trying to kill the Doctor at the behest of the evil Black Guardian, while the Doctor is piloting a literal spaceship. So it is actually like an old, flying giant ship with the big sails and everything. And it's called the Buccaneer. But, of course, the captain has been wounded, so the fifth Doctor, the Doctor is always the next highest authority, sails this ship across space and wins the Enlightenment journey. And the prize is actually the ability to choose between good and evil, which the Doctor gives to his sidekick, who's been trying to kill him, revealing that, oh, yeah, I knew all along that you were trying to kill me. Which, on one hand, is fine. On the other hand, I don't necessarily.
I don't think I've ever seen this series.
Oh, you've never seen season 20? Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
You may not have been watching it yet. We were 12 when it came out. This would have been 83. So this would have been
I would have been watching Doctor Who because I was watching it. No, believe me, I was watching Doctor Who. But for whatever reason, Peter Davison, maybe our PBS didn't have as big a run as some of the other PBS stations. But I don't remember that one. I don't remember that one at all.
A lot of people, at least in terms of PBS stations, I feel like they ran the fourth Doctor a lot longer.
Oh, yeah. No, I had
in the United States.
I had 1 through 5. And I watched all of those, but I just don't remember this one with Davison. But Fourth Doctor was a very long run for that.
Yeah, it was 7 seasons.
And then I barely remember the Sixth Doctor, and then they would start over again. Like they would only have like 1 or 2 arcs of the Sixth Doctor, and then that was it. And then they would reboot it.
The Sixth Doctor did basically a season and a half, and then the Seventh Doctor, I think, had 4 seasons. But
yeah, I've never seen a Sylvester McCoy episode.
Oh, they're pretty good. But yeah, when you look at the Fifth Doctor, they say your first Doctor is your best Doctor. But my first Doctor was the Fourth Doctor. So my second Doctor, the Fifth Doctor, my number 4, which is 5, times 4 is 20, divided by 2 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. So obviously, it's a top 5 favorite.
So my number 3 is on a boat. And again, it depends on where you saw this first. There are multiple iterations of Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile. You may have read it in a book. You may have seen a television adaptation of the piece because that was definitely a thing in the 1950s and in the 2004s. My first viewing of Death on the Nile was the 1978 film with Peter Ustinov. And I really, really enjoyed that a lot. It's got Bette Davis in it. It's got Maggie Smith in there, which I really like Maggie Smith in there. Mia Farrow is in there as well. I thought that Angela Lansbury is in there, by the way. I really liked that iteration of Death on the Nile. That being said, there was another movie that was made not too long after, or not too long ago, and that would be the Kenneth Branagh's Death on the Nile from 2022, which is part of the trilogy of Kenneth Branagh, Hercule Poirot movies, Murder on the Orient Express, and then whatever that one, Murder in Venice, something, Death in Venice. I forget what that one, the full title of that one is. Those are all enjoyable with Kenneth Branagh, though. Watching the 2022 version and the 1978 version, 2022 has kind of got a lot of stuff in there that is not like, there's a lot of Hercule Poirot backstory that goes on in that movie that I'm not really sure we need to know. Like, why does he have a big giant mustache kind of thing?
Oh,
but it's
don't
still
tell me they do the
still
origin
enjoyable.
of the mustache. Oh.
No, they do. They actually do in the Branagh series, and it makes sense. But for a story that takes place on a boat in which a murder has occurred, and Hercule Poirot just wants to have a relaxing holiday. He just wants to go see the sights of Europe, as all colonialists want to do, and he gets wrapped up in murder, and he has to solve it. And I like, of the three movies that have been made of Death on the Nile, Murder on the Orient Express, and the Venice one, I like
Haunting in Venice.
Haunting in Venice. Yeah, that's it. I like the concept of Haunting of Venice, but I like the Death of the Nile, the whodunit part with the big reveal. It's a little complicated, but it's certainly a lot better than everybody killed him. And I won't tell you what the movie is where everybody is the one that have killed the guy. But Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, certainly enjoyable. Certainly, again, I would say the Peter Ustinov 1978 version is the one that I would watch. I think it's the one that feels most genuine. I'm sure they shot a lot of stuff on location for the 2022 version, but a lot of it just feels a lot more fakey than real. But the book, you get to use your own mind to fill in all the pretty pictures. But regardless, my number 3, Death on the Nile, story that takes place on a boat.
On a boat.
Yep.
Yes.
Matthew, what do you have for your number 3?
My number 3, On a Boat, is a little bit simpler than yours. In my number 3, I'm on a boat. And the I'm in this case is T-Pain, a rapper and a singer who's best known for his use of autotune, along with the Lonely Island, Andy Samberg and Jorma Taccone and Akiva Schaffer. And the thing about this song that is so wonderful, like so much of the early 90s, well, not 90s, I guess the early 2000s. I don't even know what year it is. I feel like it's 2007. But the early 2000s stuff from The Lonely Island.
Yes, 2009, the early 2000s.
2009, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Early 2000s. Right now we're in the first quarter of the 2000s, 2025. There's 75 2000s left, right? Okay. Yeah, stay with me. So anyway,
Quite, but okay.
The thing is, The Lonely Island is funny because they're 3 nerds from, somewhere on Long Island, and they're doing all of the, the boasting and the stuff that a rapper would do. And so you have this moment where the 3 of them are on the boat and they're like, oh yeah, it's about to take off. And then you get to a point where T-Pain cuts in with T-Pain's lyrics. And of course, T-Pain wants you to know that he F-bombed a mermaid. And every time I hear that line, I'm gone. I cannot help but giggle like an idiot simply because it feels like it should be a very straightforward kind of rap song, kind of a, hey, look at me, I'm really awesome, big pimpin', we be spending cheese. But we also have both like the boat engine make noise. And I have to admit, there's something about that that's just weirdly poetic. You talk about your Hemingway. I feel like the boat engine make noise, MFer, may be a Hemingway level of prose for me. And that's why my number 3 on a boat, I'm.
Cool. So my number 2, if you think Death on the Nile is a pretty good murder mystery on a boat, I would suggest that you pay very close attention to my number 2, because it's also about solving a murder on a boat. And I don't know, it's a popular movie, but I'm not sure a lot of people have seen it. It came out in 1973. It's called The Last of Sheila. And in it, this big movie producer invites a bunch of his friends, actresses, talent managers, screenwriters, directors. They all come on this boat to travel around, I want to say the Mediterranean. And it also just happens to be the 1-year anniversary of the death of the movie producer's wife, Sheila. And the last time that she was alive, all of these people that are on this boat cruise were all there at the party in which Sheila was killed by a hit and run accident, and nobody knows who was the hit and run, who committed the hit and run. And so all throughout this movie, all of the the producers playing this off as a big game, like every destination, there's a game and clues and things that you have to solve, yada, yada, yada. But secretly, it is a mental torture to find out which person on the boat is the one that killed his wife. And it's a good movie. And the twist is really good. Those who pay close attention will figure it out very, very early. But it is really, really nice. And it's got some great actors in it. It's got James Coburn and Diane Cannon and James Mason and Joanne Hackett. Ian McShane is in this, which is really surprising. Raquel Welch is in this, and many, many, many more. It's a good movie. I would really, if you like murder mysteries and you like the whodunit, this is one of the influences for Knives Out and Glass Onion in figuring out the whodunit, and it's cited as an inspiration for those movies. So go check it out if you like murder mysteries. And I think it works just as good on a second viewing, because then oh, let's look at all the clues that are being dropped so that we know what's going to happen next. So yeah. There you go. That is my number 2, The Last of Sheila. Matthew, what do you have for your number 2?
I don't think I've ever even heard of that.
It's cool. Really rare. I had not ever heard of it either until what's his face said, "Oh no, this was a huge inspiration for me doing these movies." And I was like, well then I better sit down and check this out. And just pleasantly surprised top to bottom. I mean, it has a 1973 production value vibe to it, but the story and the plot just so well done.
Cool. So my number 2 is not in any way meant to thumb my nose at Stephen, because Stephen and I were talking before the show, and he said, remember, things that are on a boat, they have to be on the boat. Gilligan's Island is not on the boat, it's on the island.
Exactly.
But it occurred to me. You there?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm waiting for you to say Gilligan's Island so I can make sure to never invite you back on the show.
Now, hang on a second. Stay with me here. My number 2 thing on a boat is maple syrup. Because in season 1, episode 8 of Gilligan's Island, which takes place almost entirely
on an island,
on the SS Minnow, which is beached on an island, the professor realizes that Gilligan's homemade maple syrup is an incredibly powerful glue. And so, and this is a very important episode in the Gilligan's Island, the ongoing, the oeuvre, the mythos, if you will, because you have to ask yourself, why couldn't the professor fix a hole in the boat? Every hacky comedian for the last 30 years has said, why couldn't the professor fix a hole in the boat? And there's a very simple answer. In episode 8, Gilligan's maple syrup is used to rebuild the boat, to patch the holes in the boat. But it turns out that the maple syrup is only adhesive for a while, at which point it begins to explode. So Gilligan, while on the boat, covering the boat with maple syrup, which is then on the boat, realizes that the syrup is about to release, and the entire ship just springs to pieces.
I don't remember it
with these wonderful things.
So number one, it's not maple syrup
Mhm.
because there's no maple trees on the island.
No, it's fine.
Number two, it was that the glue was so strong that it would bound back to its original shape. So if you had a piece of wood that you warped into that shape and glued it down, that was the whole thing. It wasn't that the glue ran out; it's that the glue was so strong that it sprung everything back, and that's what caused the ship to explode. Otherwise, the pieces would have just fallen apart.
Now, here's the thing that you need to know. Since the syrup was on the boat, this is my number 2 because it really is one of the strongest episodes and very important if you're the kind of nerd that I am. And I'm going to be honest, God help you, I hope you're not. But this is the episode where we learn some important bits of history. Technically, this is the first chronological episode of Gilligan's Island. This is the episode that takes place immediately after the crash. And we find out that the characters, with the exception of Gilligan, actually have names. So we find out that Russell Johnson is playing Professor Roy Hinckley and that Dawn Wells is playing Mary Ann Summers. And of course, the only time it's ever mentioned, Captain Jonas Grumby, the captain of the SS Minnow, who spends, again, most of this episode on the boat.
I'm pretty sure that this is the last episode that was actually shot on a beach location before they moved the lagoon into the set.
It's definitely possible. It is one that takes place. It has a lot of footage on the beach.
Yeah.
But I can't remember. That first season, the black and white season, has been syndicated in 3 or 4 different packages. And one of them, of course, Ted Turner had colorized. But one of them, they cut the blood doobie out of to where, the 30-minute episodes from 1964 were literally 18-minute long. So that's kind of the reason I like watching them on MeTV, because bits and pieces of the show that had disappeared over the years are actually back again. But yeah. So my number 2, thing on a boat, syrup.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the pictures from the episode, and it does look like this is the last episode that was shot like on a real beach. Because I think everything after that went, or maybe they used the first season. A lot of it was on a real beach, but yeah, after that, everything moves to the lagoon, and you can definitely tell there's a difference between on location and in the studio. All right, we have reached the top of the chart, or maybe it's the crow's nest of the ship, as we look at our number 1 on a boat. Dear listener, if you want to find out what other people think of things that they think on a boat, then you need to head over to our Discord server, link in the show notes. Join for free. In this economy, free? Yes, free. In this economy, no tariffs applied or anything. You can go into our Discord server, and you can go into the top 5 channel, and you can share your top 5 ... on a boat. And maybe your number 1 will be like my number 1. It's a twofer because the story really is told best together. The Secret of the Unicorn and Red Rackham's Treasure. It's obviously the Red Rackham's Treasure part that takes place on a ship as they go sailing across the seas, trying to find the treasure of Red Rackham. Of course, this is a Tintin, a story that is beloved by many, also beloved by not so many, but it is the one that you see most people reference when they talk about one of the great Tintin stories. It's the one that was turned into the Steven Spielberg movie, and or at least the Secret of the Unicorn part. But so much of that story takes place on a boat, and it's high adventure, and it's exciting, and you get to meet all the characters, and you get to find out what the treasure truly is. But I'm not going to spoil it because that's not this show. That's another show. My number 1, Matthew, The Secret of the Unicorn and Red Rackham's Treasure. Read them back to back, even though they're separate books. Read them back to back. They make a complete story. It's a lot of fun.
They are actually really good, and I'm not necessarily an enormous fan of Tonton, But I do love Red Rackham's Treasure. I actually remember reading it when I was very, very young.
Yeah, it was probably in
So-
highlights or something.
I can't even remember now. My brain wants to say Reader's Digest, but I'm not sure if that was correct. I would have been maybe 6, 7. It was before my grandfather passed, so it was before 1980. But that's neither here nor there, because we're here to talk about my number one, things on a boat. And when you sent me the email and said, hey, ... on a boat, I was puzzled. I did. I did ask Stephen for clarification. And in Stephen's way, he said, what don't you understand, schmuck? And I said,
No,
okay.
That's not it. That's not what it said.
I'm paraphrasing.
No, let's
Anyway.
the question was, I need some clarification on top 5, and I said, what part?
Right.
The end.
In any case, it occurred to me immediately after that discussion that perhaps one of my greatest pop culture touchstones takes place on a boat, in a boat. In fact, most transforms into a giant robot. Kaizoku Gatai Gokayo. And so, my number one thing on a boat, Super Sentai Season 35, Kaizoku Sentai Gokaiger. Their base is a flying ship. It is literally a pirate ship in space. It has sails. I don't know why. I think they're just, there for show. But when things get really tough, the pirate ship transforms into the core of their quote unquote Megazord and becomes not just their home, but the center of their fighting ability, which now that I think of it, probably is kind of bad. Like if all of my stuff was in a building and that building was constantly being attacked by putty patrollers, I'd be highly irritated. Also, most of my stuff would be broken. But the boat in question, the Gokai Galleon, is fiendishly large. It does not look as big as it has to be because once you're inside, there's room for 5 people to live. There's a full dining area, a kitchen. There's a big living room area. It's an enormous vessel. And, much as with Transformers, scale means nothing in Super Sentai. You can actually have people flying around. This one leg is a submarine and one leg is a motorcycle. And they're the same size. Just go with it. But when the Gokai Galleon becomes the center of the powerful Gokai-O, the prow of the ship, I think it's called the prow, turns into a cool pirate hat. So it transforms and then it takes the pirate hat and it puts it on, it straightens it. And it's kind of like Johnny Depp if Johnny Depp was 100 feet tall and made out of some sort of space metal. So if you said to me, is that on a boat? Yes, everything is on a boat. And that's why my number one on a boat is Super Sentai.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Top 5 on a boat. What are you going to put? Are you going to put the space battleship Yamato? Are you going to put One Piece on there? Are you going to put Titanic? Oh, I'm dying to see what you have on your top 5 on a boat when you head over to our Discord server. If you found value in the show, if you had a lot of fun, you found a movie that I mentioned that you have not seen before, why don't you head over to our Patreon page? Yeah, we got one of those. In this economy, we have to. Patreon.com/Major Spoilers, where you can kick in just a few bucks. A few bucks. How much is $5 a month? I mean, this would be cheaper than a dozen eggs for you to go and say, hey, I would rather lower my cholesterol and listen to Top 5. Now, you may be right, raising your blood pressure at the same time. But we're going to save your cholesterol by you becoming a patron. Patreon.com/Major Spoilers. Take care, everyone. Remember, everyone loves a list.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.